Well, greetings one and all to your weekly status chat. It's just a little light video blog that we pull up. This is episode 276, 10/9 of 25, and today we're going to talk about just one thing, the G.19 consumer credit. And you might say, why in the world we do that? Well, I'll tell you right on the other side of this QR code that we pop up here. If you want to see any of these episodes that maybe this one came to you through some means, a Facebook or YouTube suggestion, if you want to sign up, you can go to the QR up above. That's going to give you the list to the real estate YouTube page. You can, of course, do the like and subscribe. You can comment if you like. Go ahead and click on that and hit the notifications. And then when we have our weekly posts, because they kind of vary on Thursdays when they show up, sometimes because the schedule messes with them, that'll tell you when they are there. All right, let's go back to our main scene and talk about this. Well, why isn't we only have one thing, G19, to talk about? Well, the Democrats are throwing a fit and trying to hold the continuing resolution, which is by its nature just continuing the previous budget, which of course was the Biden budget. It's just that we've kind of run out of money. We need to increase the credit limit on the nation, and that's what we need a CR for, and the Democrats are trying to do some stuff. And in the process, they're holding up a lot of things that we need. First of which, what would have been here this week is, let's pull it back to the top here, the U.S. numbers on the U.S. trade deficit. They are delayed. We have initial jobless claims, which are due today. They're delayed. Now, we can look at the ADP, which is a private hiring personnel company, but theirs vary greatly from the government data. And the government's reach is a little bit wider, a little bit broader, a little bit deeper than ADP, the private. But we could go talk about that, but we don't need to, I don't think. And wholesale inventories were due today, which are not there. Had a lot of Fed people talking in this week, but we don't have a lot of things going on. Now, the biggest thing that I see, if you are a retiree and you are on Social Security, maybe you're also a disabled person or having SSI, that type of thing. Here's the thing, the way the Social Security Administration is set up, and this really wasn't intended for the talk, but the way the Social Security Administration is set up, the COLA for the following year, like for 2026, will be calculated and based upon what the CPIW is. That's a different basket of goods than the main CPI for all urban areas. This one is one for working people, is being used and has been used to do the Social Security COLA instead of what does retirees use. Now, there is a CPI for retired persons, and of course its basket of good is less, I think, on homes and maybe rental equivalent, although they've got to rent after a certain point of time. You have to pay somebody to move you, or you stay where you're at as you're not as healthy like you were back in your green in your teen years, when everything where you're pumped up and your body is great and I can move from this location to this other one over here because this apartment complex is giving me a sign-in bonus if we sign from some other location, right? So we just tend to slow down as we get older and our needs change. We tend to be more consumers of health care and that type of thing. And so those medicines and things matter more to retired people and maybe disabled folks. Well, that COLA comes off of the CPIW. That's based upon working class people, working folks, that segment of society, which is maybe a little bit more on housing, a little bit maybe more on cars and some other things at this point in time. So it's just a different basket of goods. But we can't get the CPI because the government is being held hostage. So we don't need the COLA until the exact number on the COLA until the 1st of next year, and we've got a quarter to go through. So I wouldn't be panicking just yet. But it is one of the many things that stands to be inconvenient for people. Maybe it might cause a little bit of a delay on the cost of living if we still continue to have this political shenanigans going on as we have it going on. So let's look at what we did come here to talk about, which is the G.19. Now, this is from the Board of Governors, Federal Reserve System, Consumer Credit, the G.19. I would not know that the G.19 is the consumer credit. There's a lot of these that during a week when I'm studying on, I remember what they stand for. This just happens not to be one of them. G.19, I know what it means. Now, we're not going to read this little bit. I'll give you the link, these two links in the description of the YouTube page there. But we're going to come down here and notice that this is October 7th release, which covers August. Now we have these top three we're going to look at, which will be the total, the revolving, and non-revolving right here. And we will read the little blurb that summarizes everything we're going to talk about. In August, consumer credit increased at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 0.1%. Revolving credit decreased at an annual rate of 5.5%, while non-revolving credit increased at 2%. So here we have it. The revolving is the white. Let's keep an eye on that. And we're going to come slide over. Well, I got to do one thing. When I do these portrait shows, they're just not conducive for much of what the internet is built on, which are PCs, laptops, actually the landscape versus the portrait. And so when we have a big spreadsheet like we have here, it's just a little less conducive, but we do have a way to manage it. If you're following me on the Fed site, you just have to click that little show full screen, because that way it fits to my little scrunch down shape here. Well, here we are. So remember, this is total, this is revolving and non-revolving. The white is revolving, right? So what we see is in the revolving charges, we see a 15.8% swing from July, if this is correct. Now, I'm a little bit dubious on this. We don't have quarter 3 published because they'll do some final massaging, I'm sure. But you see, we went from about the 4s and 2s, and we had 8 at this point in time. Back here, we had some big numbers, and for some strange reason, in June, we tanked to almost nothing. So I would almost suspect maybe we might get some mixing over. Maybe some of the data here in this 10.3 belong with that 0.6. Maybe it's exactly accurate the way it shows. But we do see between July and August, we see a massive change in the revolving credit. Why might that be? Your guess is as good as mine, but I'm thinking if I was going to make a purchase and I needed to put it on credit card, I think I might be looking very strongly at the news where it talks about, is the Fed going to cut the rates? Because if I have a credit card or terms of my loan that are attached to that the prime or the federal target rate per se, indirectly or directly, I might be wanting to say, well, before I purchase it now and sign whatever this little agreement is, I think maybe I might wait maybe 30, 60 days, see if we can get that interest down 0.5 percentage point or something like that. So I sort of suspect that might be the case here. And the reason I say that, if we slide on down to this next one, where we're going to talk about cars, commercial bank interest rates, we see that the 60-month, 5 years, and 6 years here, we were running around this past date at 5, 4, 5, 7.83. Oh my goodness, that's going up. 8.16, 120. And if we get all the way over to our current data, July and August, these last 2 months, we have none for June, none for July, and only for August. We don't have the quarterly data, but we see for this month it's in line. 7.64 is in line with the 7.67 that it was in Q2. Again, this is 90 days on the other side of that, where we were on the 8s. right? So we have come down a little bit. We were getting our talk that our cost of money is going to get better, and it came down Q2. We're still sitting about that same number right there for auto loans, and of course 7.80, a little more money on the longer initial year of a loan that ties up the money. You expect to pay a little bit more there, so that looks pretty reasonable there. And we could probably hit a wider variety of things if we had more data, if they weren't being delayed by political shenanigans. I don't know. But anyway, well, let's look at our numbers for this month. Forgive the misspeak for this week. It's a half a month. It's always half a month because we always take 2 weeks. So let's see what it was last week. 10/2 of 25. We had 29,319 available in our area, pulled directly from the real tracks. And we have this 4149 under contracts. That's also from that same data source. We pulled it through our, as you see behind me, the different things we can pull into. It's off of the Real Scout. Get your account today. Of course, there's our company and the website. And of course, we're an affiliate of United. So we have a big bunch of people. If we're looking to move out of Tennessee, sell here and go to a different state, what have you, we have it. But we actually pull this data directly from the MSA. And if we click to see what we have for this week, 10/9 of 25, 29,594 goes up a little bit, not really significant. 42.56, that's up a little bit, 110 or so, something like that maybe. And our ratio remains unchanged at 14%. So we're not really seeing great volatility here in our local market, in our Middle Tennessee area. And we're not really seeing a great deal of anything else change overnight, because normally financing doesn't just dive bomb in a day or a week or so. So we can keep weekly tabs on it, see what we got. I'm a little concerned about not being able to get our data. We're always called it a little suspect anyway, but it is being delayed. And let's hope that we can get past all of this nonsense, and that people on Social Security, that grams and grandma, that they're not going to be hurting for or stressed unnecessarily, worried about whether or not their COLA is going to be what it is, because some people do have to budget. So let's get to our end saying and close out the day, and I appreciate you watching.